What if the company that first launched a mass-market hybrid car in the world suddenly declares that electric vehicles are garbage? Not a failed startup, not a market outsider, but the largest automaker on the planet. And it's not just a statement, it's a promise to show already in July a technology that will overturn everything you thought about the future of transportation. While governments of dozens of countries race to pass laws banning gasoline cars, while the media and investors unanimously insist that electric vehicles are the only way forward, Toyota made a statement that blew up the industry. Electric vehicles are toys, a temporary solution, and soon the company will prove it in practice. But before writing this off as corporate PR, it's worth figuring out exactly what Toyota knows that everyone else doesn't want to notice. Toyota is not a company that can easily be accused of falling behind on progress. In 1997, when the American market was drowning in massive SUVs and pickup trucks, it was Toyota that released the Prius, the world's first mass-market hybrid. At the time, most people didn't understand why anyone would combine a gasoline engine with an electric motor at all. It sounded strange. But Toyota turned out to be right. The Prius didn't just sell, it changed the very logic of the auto industry and opened the door to the global hybrid movement. That's exactly why Toyota's current position is so interesting. The company that wasn't afraid to go against the current in 1997 is going against the current again, but this time in the opposite direction. And its main argument is the hydrogen engine. Why is Toyota betting on hydrogen when the rest of the market is pouring billions into lithium batteries? To understand this, we first need to take an honest look at the problems the industry prefers to stay quiet about. The electric vehicle revolution looks flawless on paper. Transportation emissions make up a significant share of global carbon dioxide. If all cars switch to electric, the climate wins. This logic is politically convenient, emotionally appealing, and actively supported in the media. But Toyota has sold cars in more than 200 countries. Not just California or Germany, but also Southeast Asia, Africa, South America, and rural India. And the company asked a question few dare to say out loud. What happens to the people for whom an electric car simply doesn't work in real-world conditions? This isn't a question against progress, it's a question about reality. Let's start with the basics. Every electric vehicle needs electricity. Obvious, but few talk about the fact that a mass shift to electric vehicles would require a multiple increase in electricity production, which modern power grids simply aren't ready for. In the US alone, according to energy experts' estimates, if electric vehicles become the majority on the roads by 2035, the country will need to increase electricity production by at least 40%, and that has to happen in less than a decade. California, the flagship of the electric vehicle movement, still suffers from rolling blackouts in the summer, when demand from air conditioners spikes. Imagine adding tens of millions of cars charging at the same time on top of that. And here's a detail people especially don't like to mention. Most of the world's electricity is still produced from coal, gas and oil. That means an electric vehicle with zero tailpipe emissions can be powered by a power plant that produces those emissions, just somewhere else. In a number of countries, the total carbon footprint from producing electricity for an electric vehicle turns out to be higher than that of a regular gasoline car. The second problem is the battery. Lithium, the key material for electric vehicle batteries, is mined mainly in Chile, Argentina and Australia. Its extraction consumes enormous amounts of water in regions already short on water, damages ecosystems and creates serious pollution. In parts of South America, local communities are already facing shortages of clean water because of lithium mines. Cobalt, another important component of many batteries, is mined predominantly in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and its extraction is linked to documented cases of child labor and dangerous working conditions. This is a systemic problem that the global battery supply chain still hasn't solved. Finally, what happens to batteries when they wear out after 8 to 15 years? Industrial infrastructure for recycling electric vehicle batteries at the necessary scale practically doesn't exist. If hundreds of millions of electric vehicles go through a full life cycle in the coming decades, humanity could face a toxic crisis of unprecedented scale. The third problem is money. Electric vehicles are still significantly more expensive than gasoline ones. In the US, the average price of a new electric vehicle exceeds $50,000, while the average gasoline car costs around $35,000. Government subsidies narrow this gap, but not forever. And in developing economies, where average income is incomparably lower, an electric vehicle remains an unattainable luxury altogether. And charging is a separate story. A regular home charge takes anywhere from 8 to 40 hours, depending on power and battery size. Fast charging stations cut that time down to 30 minutes to an hour, but that's still nothing compared to a 5-minute gas fill-up. For millions of people living in city apartments without a private garage, home charging isn't even an option. They are entirely dependent on public infrastructure that can't yet handle the load of mass electric vehicle adoption. These are exactly the problems Toyota has been talking about for years, while other companies were busy with the positive side of the electric vehicle story. And this is exactly what led the company to hydrogen. How does a hydrogen internal combustion engine work? The idea sounds paradoxical. Toyota takes a regular piston engine and instead of gasoline burns hydrogen in it. When hydrogen burns in the combustion chamber, the main product of the reaction is water. No carbon dioxide, no carbon monoxide, no fine particulates. Toyota has already built real prototypes, not lab models but racing ones. The Corolla Cross H2 concept and the hydrogen GR Yaris have been tested on official racetracks in Japan. These cars don't use fuel cells like the Mirai, they actually burn hydrogen in the engine, almost the same way a regular car burns gasoline. To do this, Toyota had to solve serious engineering challenges. Hydrogen burns faster and hotter than gasoline, so the pistons, valves and cylinder head needed substantial reinforcement. The fuel system was completely redesigned, since hydrogen is a gas, not a liquid. The ignition system needed precise calibration. Toyota met these challenges. The result is a car that feels like a gasoline one. Engine sound, throttle response, mechanical connection to the road, but without carbon dioxide from the tailpipe. The main advantage Toyota talks about constantly is refueling speed. A hydrogen car refuels in 90 seconds to 5 minutes, just like a regular car at a gas station. After a full tank, hundreds of kilometers with no range anxiety and no need to plan a route around charging stations. Hydrogen also doesn't lose efficiency in extreme conditions. Lithium-ion batteries lose a significant portion of their range in cold weather, by some estimates 20 to 40%. Heat creates a risk of overheating. A hydrogen engine performs consistently in both severe cold and extreme heat, which makes it attractive for regions with harsh climates. But hydrogen has one critical problem that Toyota itself can't deny: infrastructure. There are currently about 60 hydrogen fueling stations in the US, and most are in California. For comparison, there are about 160,000 electric vehicle charging stations, and that number is growing fast. You can't sell hydrogen cars to people in places where there are no fueling stations, and you can't build fueling stations where there are no cars. A classic chicken and egg problem. And in this race, electric vehicles are clearly winning for now. The cost of building a hydrogen fueling station is incomparably higher than an electric charging point. Hydrogen requires storage under extreme pressure or at ultra-low temperatures, expensive equipment. Plus, most commercial hydrogen today is produced from natural gas, which itself creates carbon dioxide emissions. Green hydrogen produced from renewable sources exists, but is still more expensive and produced in incomparably smaller volumes. But Toyota's actual strategy is more complex than just a bet on hydrogen. The company is simultaneously investing in solid-state batteries, the next generation of batteries meant to charge faster, be safer and have higher energy density. Toyota states it plans to release cars with solid-state batteries in the coming years. If that happens, many of the current problems with electric vehicles could be solved. Toyota's hybrids aren't going anywhere either. On the contrary, the company is ramping up their production. The RAV4 hybrid and Camry hybrid are selling better than ever in the US. For markets where electric infrastructure isn't ready yet, the hybrid isn't a temporary measure, it's the most realistic solution for the next decade. Toyota sees hydrogen primarily in the niche of heavy commercial transport. Trucks carrying hundreds of tons of cargo over thousands of kilometers can't run on batteries, they'd be too heavy and take too long to charge. Hydrogen offers a different answer, refueling in minutes hundreds of kilometers of range, like a diesel truck, but without the exhaust. Toyota is already developing hydrogen buses and commercial trucks. In Japan, Germany and South Korea, hydrogen fueling networks along major freight routes are already expanding. The history of transportation has no examples of one technology completely destroying all the others. Gasoline didn't kill diesel, airplanes didn't kill trains, solar power didn't displace everything else. Different technologies find their niches and coexist. This is exactly what Toyota is betting on. Electric vehicles for cities with developed infrastructure, hybrids for flexibility and developing markets, hydrogen for heavy transport and regions where an electric vehicle isn't realistic yet. What's happening right now? BYD has overtaken Tesla in global electric vehicle sales, a turning point that few have given proper attention to. Volkswagen, Ford and General Motors, having invested billions in the electric vehicle transition, have run into higher costs and weaker demand than expected. Toyota, meanwhile, remains the world's largest automaker by total sales volume, and the steady cash flow from hybrids allows the company to continue long-term research. The risk for Toyota is real. If electric vehicles take over the market faster than expected, the company could end up behind competitors who have already secured strong positions. But if the transition turns out to be slower and harder than governments promise, Toyota will have earned the right to say, "We told you so." Key signals worth watching. Toyota's progress with solid-state batteries, the expansion of hydrogen infrastructure in Japan, Germany and South Korea, and the real consumer experience with electric vehicles, in cold weather, in rural areas, without home charging. There is no clear winner here. Toyota may be right that the world can't switch to a single type of transportation on one uniform timeline for everyone, but the company may also be underestimating the speed of battery technology improvement. Hydrogen has real potential, especially for heavy transport, but the infrastructure barrier can't be ignored. More important than the question of who's right are the questions Toyota itself is asking about the state of power grids, about battery supply chains, about the accessibility of technology for people in less developed regions. These are questions the entire industry should be answering, not just following the trend. The future of transportation is still being written, and sometimes it's exactly the one asking the uncomfortable questions who ends up determining the direction. What do you think? Does Toyota see further than everyone else, or is this a risky gamble that could cost the company dearly? And what seems more realistic to you, betting on a single technology or a multi-pronged approach? Write in the comments, I read every response and I'm genuinely interested in your opinion. If this video changed your perspective on the topic, give it a like and share it with those who care about the future of transportation. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, there are many more deep dives like this one coming.